So, everybody knows the story of Chanukah. Simple story. The Greeks fought against the Jews. We won. When we won, we found a cruse of oil, a jug of oil. It was supposed to last for 1 day. It lasted for 8 days. Right? Today we're going to do something we never did before. The question that we're going to discuss today is, we know that Chanukah is not a holiday from the Torah. It's like Purim. It's a holiday from the rabbis. The question is, who gives the rabbis the permission to make a holiday? What is this? You decide to make a holiday? We're going to discuss both Purim and Chanukah. Who gave them a permission to make Purim a holiday? Who gave them permission to make Chanukah a holiday? What are the rules? Can you make a holiday? For example, tomorrow we want to make the independence of Israel a holiday. Are we allowed to? We're not allowed to. What's the rules? What's not the rules? Tomorrow somebody decides, I don't know, whatever. Everybody, in America, every second day there's a new holiday. There's Mother's Day, there's Father's Day, there's Martin Luther King. Yeah, exactly. What's the rules?
Maybe we can cancel some holidays, maybe. Change them, move them.
Yeah, we don't know. So let's see. Just a quick view. Purim happened between the first temple and the second temple. That's when Purim happened. Even though many people think about Chanukah later than Purim, Purim later than Chanukah, Chanukah was actually later than Purim. Chanukah was 200 years into the second temple. So the difference between Purim and Chanukah is around 200 years, maybe a little bit more, but just around that. Around 200 years between Purim and Chanukah. Chanukah is the later one. Okay, so let's start. We're on page 3. Ma'u Chanukah. What is Chanukah? כשנכנסו יוונים להיכל, this is from tractate Shabbat. We don't have tractate Chanukah. So all the laws about Chanukah actually can be found in tractate Shabbat. So, כשנכנסו יוונים להיכל, when the Greeks came into the temple, טימאו כל השמנים שבהיכל. They defiled all the oils that's in the temple. וכשגברה מלכות בית חשמונאי, and when the house of Hashmonaim won the war, וניצחום, and they won against the Greeks, בדקו, they checked, ולא מצאו אלא פח אחד של שמן. And they only found one little cruse of oil, שהיה מונח בחותמו של כהן גדול, that was sealed in the seal of the high priest. ולא היה בו אלא להדליק יום אחד, it only had enough oil for 1 day, נעשה בו נס והדליקו ממנו 8 ימים. There was a miracle, and they lit from that cruse of oil for 8 days. לשנה אחרת, the next year, כבאום ועשום ימים טובים, next year they established it into a holiday, בהלל והודאה. What do you have to say? You have to say Hallel and praise God. Rashi says, Rashi explains, קבאום ועשום ימים טובים בהלל והודאה, they made them into holidays that one has to praise God, say Hallel and thank God. לא שאסורים במלאכה. They're not like the 3 holidays, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Those kind of holidays. Because on those holidays you are forbidden to do work. שלא נקבעו אלא לקרות הלל ולומר על הניסים בהודאה. The only establishment is to say Hallel and to say this paragraph that we say during davening, al hanisim. That's it. In other words, you're allowed to go to work. There's no prohibition on work like in the other 3 holidays that we know from the Torah. And that's what Rashi explains. Interesting. So let's continue. Mm-hmm. Page 4. בנוגע לכללות הימים הטובים, this is from the Rebbe. The Rebbe asks a question over here. When it comes to holidays, ישנם הימים טובים שהם מן התורה. There's a simple holiday that everybody knows, that the Torah itself states them. כמו שכתוב, like it says, 3 רגלים תחוג לי בשנה. 3 times you should have a holiday throughout the year. This is Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. שהתורה עצמה קבעה את הזמנים, the Torah itself established the times, ואת האופנים שבהם צריכים לחגוג ימים טובים אלו. Not only the times, it told us what to do. In Pesach, eat matzah. In Sukkot, sit in a sukkah, and so on and so forth. Shavuot, there's nothing much to do, but yeah. But the Torah itself tells us what to do. וישנם גם ימים טובים, but then it says, look, that's not, there's other holidays. For example, שהם מדברי קבלה, that they are from the words of the sages. In other words, it was not stated in the Torah. You're not going to find it in the Torah. שזהו היום טוב דפורים, this is the holiday of Purim, והיום טוב דחנוכה, and the holiday of Chanukah. And we're going to find that there's a difference between them. We never noticed. And now we're going to figure there's actually a big difference between Yom Tov Purim and Yom Tov Chanukah. What's the difference? ומצינו חילוק ביניהם. We found a difference between them. בנוגע לפורים, when it comes to the holiday of Purim, מפורש במגילה, it is stated in the Megillah, שהמלחמה הייתה, the war was when, ביום 13 לחודש אדר. We fought against the enemy in the 13th of Adar. ומיד למחרתו, immediately the next day, what happened? ונוח ב14 בו, and they won in the 14th day, right? Except in Shushan, which they won in the 15th day. That's why they celebrate the day later. But immediately they won the next day, and immediately the next day, ועשה אותו יום משתה ושמחה. Immediately at that moment, it became a holiday. They made a celebration. We won the war.
Not next year.
Oh, very good. Not next year, immediately. ובשושן ב15 באדר. And in Shushan, in the 15th of Adar. Because it took them one more day to fight against the enemies. היינו שהיום טוב היה מיד באותו שנה. It was exactly at that year. They didn't wait, like Arya says, they didn't wait for the next year to celebrate. ואילו בנוגע לחנוכה, and now when it comes to Chanukah, it's strange. They should celebrate, make a celebration. You won the war. You won, celebrate. Ita b'Gemara, it says in the Gemara, נעשה בו נס, so it was a miracle, whenever Chanukah was, so לשנה אחרת קבעום ועשום ימים טובים בליל והודאה. So they made the holiday only when? The next year. Why didn't they make the holiday? You won the war, made the holiday for the war. Maybe you didn't know there's going to be a miracle with the oil, okay, so you didn't know. But at least celebrate, like you celebrated with Purim. It's a big celebration. So we need to understand. Page 5. ויש לבאר חילוק זה על פי נגלה. We're going to give the revealed explanation first. ומזה יובן גם תוכן העניינים כפי שהם בעבודת האדם. And then we're going to understand also the deeper meaning behind it. Why is it so? מצינו בנוגע לגזירת דרבנן. So this is the first rule we're going to learn about decrees from the rabbis. This is the first rule. Whenever the rabbis make a decree that you don't find it in the Torah, שהיו בודקים אם זוהי גזירה שרוב הציבור יכולים לעמוד בה. That even though they would make a decree, they would check, they will make a survey. They will go around, they will ask the leaders, they will ask the population, they will ask questions, they say, do you think that most of the population, like the vast majority of the people are going to hold by it or not? If they're not going to think that they're going to hold by it, they don't accept it. If they think they are going to hold by it, they do make it. For example, there was a decree by Rabbi Gershon not to marry two wives. Since the Jewish people accepted it, it is accepted. The Yemenite didn't accept it, so it wasn't accepted. It's simple. Once a community doesn't accept it, it's not accepted. That's the rule. The community has to accept the rule if it's from the rabbis.
So Yemenites can marry two wives?
Oh, very good. So until I would say probably 1960s, until they got into the land of Israel, yes, in Yemen, they were able to marry two wives. Now that they reached the land of Israel, they have to take the customs of the land. So now they cannot, but in 40 years ago, 50 years ago, yes, it was permissible, and you can find many Yemenites in the land of Israel who are, even today, are still married to 2 wives.
How come the Yemenites have so many different rules than the rest of Judaism? They can eat not cockroaches, but locusts. They can
grasshoppers.
They can do all sorts of.
The reason with there's not that many rules which are different, by the way.
Okay.
There's a lot of Sfaradim who have different rules than Ashkenaz Jew. So Yemenite is a little bit more because they were very isolated, and the communities kept the rules that they knew. So they were, because of their isolation, they developed their own kind of things. But it was according to Torah law. Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
So let's go to the Rambam, and the Rambam explains this rule. So the Rambam says like this: Beit Din, if there's a court, שנראה להם לגזור גזרה, that they think that they have to make a decree, או לתקן תקנה, or to fix something within Judaism, או להנהיג מנהג, or they want to establish a particular custom, צריכים להתיישב בדבר. They can't just do it. They need to think about it. There's going to be things that are going to, because of this custom, are going to cause down the line many problems. So you have to think all the things. ולידת תחילה, and the most important thing is to know in the beginning, אם רוב הציבור יכולים לעמוד בהם. If the vast majority of the congregation are actually going to do it, are going to accept it. Or אם אין יכולים לעמוד, or they won't be able to accept it. There's a decree that every time a person has a relationship with his wife, he needs to go to the mikveh. Yeah? And unless he goes to the mikveh, he cannot get an aliyah, he cannot learn Torah, he cannot... The Jewish population, even though there was such a decree, didn't accept that decree. Yeah? So this is an example of a decree that the rabbis made, and the congregation didn't accept it, so therefore we don't follow it today. ולעולם אין גוזרים גזרה לציבור, and one should never make a decree on the congregation, אלא אם כן רוב הציבור יכולים לעמוד בה. Only if the majority of the congregation can withhold it, can withstand. So let's look at Purim. And we're going to see what happened in Purim. Purim is the first time that the rabbis made a new holiday. So it says, let's look at the Megillah, what it says about it. So notice what it says. Al ken, this is a quote from the Megillah itself. Therefore, היהודים הפרוזים היושבים בערי הפרזות, the Jews that live in open cities, in non-walled cities, עושים את יום 14 לחודש אדר, they make the 14th day of the month of Adar, שמחה ומשתה ויום טוב, they make it a happy a feast, and a יום טוב, notice the word יום טוב, ומשלוח מנות איש לרעהו, and they send gifts to one another. And then this is what it says in the beginning, and then it says in the end of the Megillah, it says something else. What does it says? ויכתוב מרדכי את הדברים האלה, and Mordechai wrote these things, וישלח ספרים אל כל היהודים, he sent messengers with books to all the Jews, אשר בכל מדינות המלך אחשוורוש, that are with in all the countries of the king אחשוורוש, הקרובים והרחוקים, those who are close, those who are far, לקיים עליהם להיות עושים, to establish upon them, to take upon themselves to do, את יום 14 לחודש אדר, the 14th day of the month of Adar, ואת יום 15, and the 15th day if you lived in a walled city, בכל שנה ושנה, in each and every year, קיימים, and they established it to do it like the days אשר נחו בהם היהודים מאויביהם, that the Jews rested from their enemies, והחודש אשר נהפך להם מיגון לשמחה, and the month that overturned to them from mourning to happiness, ומעבר ליום טוב, from mourning to a celebration for יום טוב, to a holiday, לעשות אותם, to make those days ימי משתה, days of feast, ושמחה, and happiness, ומשלוח מנות איש לרעהו, and send gifts meant to his brother, ומתנות לאביונים, and presents to the poor. There's one thing missing over here. What is missing?
הלל.
יום טוב.
או, יום טוב, נכון.
There's no יום טוב.
אבל יש, מעבר ליום טוב. לשמחה ומעבר ליום טוב.
Yeah, but לעשות אותם, ימי משתה בשמחה ומשלוח מנות איש לרעהו וליום טוב. Yeah, it should say and יום טוב.
And יום טוב.
And a holiday. It doesn't repeat the holiday part. So let's see what's going on. So this is in Masechet Megillah, it explains what happened. So Rabbi, bno shel Rava amar, this is from Masechet Megillah. Rava, the son of Rava, said, בעיקרו של דבר, it says, the main thing of Purim, איסור הספד. You're not allowed to mourn. ותענית. You're not allowed to fast ביום הפורים. That's the main thing. No mourning, no fasting. So קיבלו עליהם כל ישראל. This, no mourning or no fasting, the entire Jewish population accepted upon themselves. But the rabbis didn't just say no mourning, no fasting. They also said it's a Yom Tov. Yom Tov, when the rabbis said then, they meant it's like Pesach, which means you're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to drive a car. You're not allowed to light fire. That's what they meant. It's a real Yom Tov, when they said in the beginning. Ulam isur melacha, but the congregation, the prohibition when it comes to not working, not making a new thing, not doing the 39 melachas, that lo kiblu alehem. They did not receive upon them. וראייה לדבר, how can we see this? ממה שבתחילה נאמר, in the beginning it said, כשהוציאו מרדכי ואסתר את החג, when Mordechai and Esther came to the Jewish population and told them, we're going to make a holiday, what did they tell them? שמחה ומשתה ויום טוב. They told him happiness and a feast and יום טוב. ולבסוף נאמר, and in the end it says, שקיבלו לקיים עליהם, that the Jews received upon them, לעשות אותו ימי משתה ושמחה, to make them a day of feast and of happiness. But it doesn't say, יום טוב. ואילו יום טוב לא נאמר, הרי שלא קיבלו עליהם לאסור בו מלאכה כביום טוב. So they didn't receive upon themselves. Even though it was suggested by Mordechai, who was one of the men of the great assembly, אוקיי, ועל דרך זה גם בנוגע לעניין דיום טוב שקשור עם ביטול מלאכה. So this is why when it comes to יום טוב, when it mentions not doing any work. כפי שמצינו, like we find, שגם בפורים לא נקבעו בשנה הראשונה כל הפרטים. So we see, also in Purim, the first year, not all the details were established. Because the details, the first years, were supposed to be also what? A Yom Tov. And only the next year, when he sent it, it was said, שלכן מעיקרא כתיב, because in the beginning it says, שמחה ומשתה ויום טוב. He wanted the Jews to do a feast and not to work. ולבסוף כתיב, but in the end it is written, לעשות אותם, to make them ימי משתה ושמחה, days of feast and happiness. ואילו יום טוב לא כתיב, but יום טוב he did not establish. Why? מכיוון שמרדכי ואסתר רצו לגזור שיהיה גם ביטול מלאכה. If it was up to Mordechai and Esther, they would have decreed that there's no work also on Purim. אך לפועל הציבור לא קיבלו זאת. But when they made the survey, they told Mordechai, we don't like this. When it comes to work, we want to be able to work on Purim. And they did not accept the idea of not doing any melacha on Purim. So הספד ותענית קבלילו, to make it a festive day, they received upon them. He says, we're not going to mourn, we're not going to fast on this day. מלאכה לא קיבלו עליה, but we're not willing. So it looks like he made a proposal, and the community overruled him. They told Mordechai, nice proposal, we'll take some of it we're not going to take. ולכן נקבע שפורים מותר במלאכה. This is why it was established that we can do all kinds of work on Purim. So now, it comes 200 years later. So the sages already learned. What did the sages learn? The sages learned, like, it's a problem to make a holiday. You can't just establish a holiday, boom, trach, and make it a holiday. So let's sit inside. ומזה מובן, now we're going to understand, שכאשר חכמים עמדו לקבוע את היום טוב של חנוכה, when the sages wanted to establish the Chanukah Yom Tov, ואופנו, and how to celebrate it, לא היו יכולים לקבוע בשנה הראשונה באופן של קביעות. They couldn't have made it in the first year in an established manner, because they didn't know what the people are going to accept, and what the people are not going to accept. שהרי ידעו כבר מהמעשה דפורים, they already learned from the previous time somebody tried to establish a holiday. שיכול להיות שהציבור לא יקבלו עליהם. It's possible that the community is not going to accept upon them the holiday. ורק לשנה אחרת. That's why they waited an entire year for the celebration, to see if the community actually wants it. לאחרי שמשך השנה התברר מה יקבלו הציבור ומה לא כמו בפורים. It took them a year to make surveys to find out the situation of the nation. Are they going to accept it? Not going to accept it. So קבעום לימים טובים בהלל והודאה. So then they established it as Yom Tovs, Hallel, praise God. And also, like Purim, they are not forbidden at work with Chanukah.
Can rabbis today say, you know what, now let's make it a Yom Tov? Is that a theoretical possibility?
No, because they need to be bigger than those rabbis.
And
The base
younger
din.
cannot be bigger.
That's right. That's right. Now, let's just understand what's going over here. We need a little bit of introduction. The true reason why they actually waited a year sounds simple as over here, but it was much more complicated. The reason why they needed to wait a year is because they didn't know if they won the war. Now, what do I mean they didn't know if they won the war? You have to understand what happens. The Greeks came into Israel. The Greeks did not abuse the Jewish nation. On the contrary, they built Israel to such an extent, gymnasiums and theaters and merchants, and it became like New York. It became the gem of the Middle East, Israel, because of the Greeks. And it was such a problem that pretty much all the nobility in Israel, all the people who had power in Israel became Hellenized, became Greeks. Everybody, if there was anybody who was religious, it was the simple folk. The entire higher priesthood, all the priests we're talking about, all the mayors, all the nobility, all the people of power, all of them became Hellenized. They became Hellenized. And the fight, when the Maccabees started to fight against the Greeks, even though there was a fight between the Greeks and the Maccabees, the sages didn't, when they won the fight against the Greeks, they were not sure they won the fight against the Jews. Because who were the Jews fighting? The Jews were not fighting against the Greeks so much. They were fighting against the other Jews who wanted to become Hellenized. It was a civil war within the Jewish nation. Those who wanted to become Hellenists, to become Greeks, and those simple folk who, didn't know any better. And that was the fight. And immediately after the Jews won, the rabbis weren't sure what's the direction of the nation. Is the nation going to become religious again? Or it was just a one-time war to kick the Greeks out, and the nation is going to turn what? Into the Greek culture once more, like they did before.
But why is it? Isn't right after the war, then you can keep Shabbos, you can do Brit Milah, you can do all the things that you couldn't do before.
Yeah, but
so you can do it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the nation wants to do it. It means
maybe they want to stay.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Okay.
Not maybe. That was the war. The war was. That was exactly as we're going to see. The upper society completely became Greek, completely, in all customs. The high priest, started worshiping Apollo in the Beis Hamikdash and everything, this, as we're going to learn. Another difference we're going to see why in Purim they didn't wait, in Chanukah they had to wait, is because the miracle was different, as we're going to see soon. The miracle in Purim and the miracle in Chanukah was a different miracle. So let's look inside. We are on page 9. Ki bepurim, this is from the Levush, hayat salat nefashot. In Purim, the war was about Jewish souls. They wanted to kill our body. That's what they wanted to kill. They wanted to kill the Jews. They were Nazis. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to kill the Jews. They didn't care about our religion or not religion. ובחנוכה לא יצא לנשות. The Greeks didn't want to kill us. Nothing at all.
They loved us.
Yeah, they didn't want to kill us. They even appreciated learning Torah. They started learning Torah themselves. But they didn't like the holiness of the Torah. כי היוונים לא ביקשו נפשות. The Greeks didn't want to kill us. What did the Greek want? The Greek wanted us to adapt their culture. That's what they wanted us to become. וחושך זה, and this darkness, this is from Midrash Rabbah, גלות יוון, the exile of the Greeks, שהחשיכה עיניהם של ישראל בגזורותיהם, they made as our eyes dim with their decrees, שהייתה אומרת להם, the Greek culture used to tell the Jewish people, כתבו על קרן השור, you should write on the horn of the bull, שאין לכם חלק באלוקי ישראל. You have no part in the God of the Jews. So, to give an example, what does it mean to write on the horn of the bull? So you have to understand, the bull was a possession, right? You have a similar thing today in our days, that if you go out in the streets, you see people drive cars. And in the back of the cars, they...
Sticker.
That's right. They put a sticker. I support Biden. I support Trump.
I believe in God.
I believe in something. Yeah. So it says, on your possession, what's the bull? The bull is on your possession. I want you to state on your possession that you do not believe in God. That you don't believe in the Jewish God.
Put a sticker on your
Put
car.
a sticker in your car. That's right. I want you to make a statement.
Yeah.
On your possession, I want you to say, I don't support Biden or I don't support Trump, whatever the side it is. So this is, in other words, the Nazis, what did the Nazis do? They took the possessions. The Greek says you can keep your possessions. It's fine. Just make sure that the possession says that it doesn't belong to the Jewish God. That's what it was.
They didn't want to kill us.
That's right. שגזרו מלכי יוון על ישראל, the Greeks made a decree on the Jewish people, שלא יעסקו בתורה, that they're not going to learn Torah, לא ימולו את בניהם, they should not circumcise their sons, ושלא ישמרו את השבת, they should not keep Shabbat, and ושיעבדו עבודה זרה, and that they should do idol worship. That was the Greeks. And as we're going to see, this is from a book called Chashmonaim, and we're going to see that what was happening at the time from the book of Chashmonaim? What was the atmosphere? So it says, Vayehi ba'et ahi, and it was at that time, Vayetzu anashim bnei Vliyal, and they came corrupted men, Mikerev Israel, from whom? Not from the Greeks. The trouble comes from whom? From us. From inside the Jewish nation. Those are the worst guys. The guys who came from inside, not the Greeks. וידיחו את העם לאמור, and they told the nation to say, what did they say? הבה נכרתה ברית את הגויים אשר סביבותינו. Let's make a covenant with the nations that are around us. Let's submit ourselves to the UN. We're part of the UN. We're not special. We're going to give our independence to the UN. כי מאז אשר סרנו מאחריהם, because look, when we used to do what the UN said to us, everything was good. But once we went against them, then all the trouble started. מצאנו צרות רבות ורעות. So then, therefore, we have to accept all the rules of what? Not the Jewish rules. We have to accept the rules
The goyim.
of the Goyim, of the UN. Then it's going to be good for us. Yeah, this what. And then it says, look what happened. Vayitav hadavar b'nei ha'am. The nation, there was, like today, there was elections, and 80% of the nation voted, we want to go with the Greeks. That's what happened. There was an election, democracy. And the democratic system says 80% of the nation, whatever, probably was more than 80. It was probably 90, maybe 95%, of the nation wanted to be Greeks. Vayishlachu malachim el hamelech, and they sent messengers to the king. Vayetzaveh hamelech beyadam lalechet b'derechei hagoyim b'chukotehem. And the king said, look, if that's the majority, who am I to go against the majority? So let's do what the majority says. Democracy is democracy. Democracy is a value. We believe in democracy. We believe in values. We'll go with the majority. If the majority of the nation wants this, what are we going to do? Going against 95% of the nation? Doesn't make sense. So what happened? Vayakimu beit mischak b'Yerushalayim. They started opening casinos in Yerushalayim. B'mishpat hagoyim. In all the goyim did. Velo malu od et bnehem. They stopped circumcising their sons. ויעזבו את ברית הקודש ללכת בחוקותם, and they did not keep Shabbos, and they kept the holidays of the nations. ויתמכרו לעשות הרע בעיני השם, and they started to do evil in the eyes of God. And we're talking about the nation voted, go argue. Go argue. You can't, what is the 5% that still keep Torah and mitzvahs going to say? They're going to say 5%, you want to be religious? Go be religious. We don't want. We're the majority. We're 95. How are you going with your 5%? You're going to tell us what to do? You can't. Go away. That's the situation was in Israel at the time.
Worse than today.
Much worse.
Yeah.
Much worse. We think today is worse. Much worse. Let's look also from the book of Maccabim, and we're going to see exactly what happened. Vayehi ba'et hahi, and it was at that time, Vayamat Salikus passed away, Vamamlacha avra leAntiochus המפואר, and the kingship came to Antiochus. Vayakam Yeshua, you probably heard him, so this is not Yeshua, Jason. If you heard of Jason, the famous Jason that bought the high priesthood, this Yeshua changed his name, he was a high priest. He changed his name to Jason. He took a Greek name. He wasn't, imagine what happened, they took Greek name.
But who was before?
Yeah, it's not...
what was his Hebrew name?
Yeshua.
Oh, Yeshua.
It was, he...
What?
Yeah, he bought, you're going to see soon. No. He was Achi Chonio, Vayevakesh et avodat hakehuna, and he wanted the service to become a priest. Vayomer el hamelech, he said to the king, Im naton titen et mishmeret hakehuna al yadi. He says, if you're going to give me the priesthood, you get taxes, right? From the priesthood, I'm going to make sure you get twice the taxes. ושקלתי 360 כיכר כסף במכירה. I'll give you 360 bars of silver. ועוד 80 כיכר מתרומות הארץ. And another 80 bars from taxes extra to what you should get. ומלבד זאת אוסיף לך עוד 50 ו100 כיכר כסף. And besides that, I'll give you another 150 bars. בתתך לי יד להקים. And you know what I'm going to do? Sure. Also, I'm going to take money from the people, and with the taxes, you know what I'm going to make? I'm going to build gymnasiums, I'm going to build casinos, I'm going to build all these places to support the Greek culture. That's what he told them. להקים בתי משחק בירושלים, to put all these kinds of casinos in Yerushalayim. So what? לחנך בתוכם את הנערים. I want to take the youth, because now we're not 100% sure the youth is going to go to us. So we're going to take the youth completely. We're going to give them, gymnasiums and theaters and all this kind. So who's going to run away from this? Greek culture was so nice, so beautiful. ומשפט אחד יהיה להם וליושבי אנטיוכה, and they're going to become the same nation as the city of Antiochus. Everybody is going to become Greek. There's not going to be Jews and Greeks. Everybody's going to become Greek. ויהי כאשר נתן לו המלך ככל אשר שאל, when the king gave him everything that he asked for. והממשלה נכונה בידו, and the kingship became in his hand, ויניע את לבב העם ללכת בדרכי היוונים. And he took the majority of the nation to go in the way of the Greeks. ויפר את כל החוקים, he abandoned all the Jewish laws, הטובים אשר נתנו להם מן המלכים לפנים על יד יוחנן אבי אפולמוס, all the customs of the Jews they abolished, הוא האפילומוס אשר שולח לרומא לכרות ברית את זקניה, ויסר את חוקי השם, and he removed all the laws of God, וישם חוקי תועבות תחתם, and he put the laws of the Greeks underneath it. All the defiled laws. ויבן בית משחק מתחת לעיר דוד, he built a casino, pretty much in those times, casinos, inside, underneath the city of David, כחפצו, like the custom of the Greeks, ויצב לכל בחורי כוח, and he commanded all the youth, לשחוק בו במסווה על פנים, to come over there, and to have on their faces a mask. What was the idea? Because the depravity of these places was awful. It was sodomy that they did over there, sleeping with animals that they did over there. And it was to such depravity that these places was known that people were embarrassed to go. So he came up with a solution. He said, you know what? When you come, you put a mask on your face.
Nobody knows
So
you.
nobody knows you. So the custom was to go into these places with a mask. So then you can do whatever you want and nobody judges. And then you can go home, nobody knows it, who it was, what it was, where it was. And that was the amount of depravity they had. ויפרצו חוקות היוונים על פני כל העיר בתועבת ישוע בליעל. So all this custom spread out ירושלים, אשר לא הייתה לו משפט כהונה. That there wasn't, that he became the high priest. He became the leader of the nation. He became the demagogue. He told people what to do and everybody, yeah, you're the guy. כי גם הכהנים עזבו את עבודת המזבח. Everybody left. Even the Kohanim, the high nobility, left Judaism. ואת הקורבנות and the sacrifices. ויבוזו את הקודש. They despised Judaism. They despised holiness. ויחפזו ללכת אל בית המשחק. And they ran to these casinos, להתפתל, to wiggle around, ולהתגנח בחנית ורומח. And they also had the Colosseums, where they fought, men against men, men against animals. ולשחוק בשחוק הכדורים, they started to play with the balls, baseball, cricket, basketball, all the things. ויחשבו את דרכי אבותיהם להבל וריק, and they thought that their forefathers were primitive, we're advanced, we're the Greek, we're the new generation. That's what they thought. ויהללו את דרכי היוונים, and they praised the ways of the Greek. In other words, it wasn't the Greeks who changed the culture.
The Jews themselves?
We changed the culture. So now you understand, it's easy to understand why they had to wait a year. After this, even though they won the war, they didn't know they won the war. How can you know? You don't know yet. You don't know if you... Yes, the military...
They have to go in דרכי השם לאט לאט.
That's right. Otherwise you didn't win.
Yeah.
So let's continue. ידוע מה שכתב הלבוש. It is known what the לבוש wrote בהלכות חנוכה, in the laws of חנוכה. והובא בדרושי חסידות, it also brought in the דרושים of חסידus, בביאור החילוק שבין חנוכה לפורים. The big differences between חנוכה and פורים. שהנס בפורים היה הצלת הגוף. The miracle in Purim was that our bodies were saved. שהרי הגזרה הייתה, because the decree was, להשמיד, להרוג ולאבד את כל היהודים, to kill the Jewish bodies. והנס היה להצלת הגוף, and the miracle was that our bodies were saved. ושנהפוך, אשר ישלטו היהודים בשונאיהם. Not only we were not killed, we killed our animals. That was the miracle of Purim. So then you can celebrate it immediately. You were saved. So at the moment you will save, then you kill the enemies, immediately you can save it. That's it. That's the miracle. That's the miracle. That's right.
You're alive. Yeah, it's a
Miracle. That's right. מה שאין כן בחנוכה, but Hanukkah, that wasn't the problems. What was the problem? שהייתה גזרה רוחנית. It was a spiritual problem. It wasn't a physical problem. What was the decree? And it says, if you look at the words, everything is accurate. להשכיחם תורתך, to make you forget your Torah, ולהעבירם מחוקי רצונך, to make you transgress against the laws of God. והנס היה שבטלה גזירה רוחנית זאת. The miracle was that this decree was annulled. ובהתאם לכך יש נפקא מינה בנוגע לקביעת היום טוב. That's why there's a difference when it comes to the establishment of the Yom Tov. כאשר מדובר אודות ביטול גזירה גשמית, when we are talking about nullification of the decree, which was a physical decree, רואים זאת מיד על אתר, you see it immediately. וכפי שהיה בפורים, just like it was בפורים, שביום אשר שברו אויבי היהודים לשלוט בהם, ונהפוך הוא ששתו היהודים הם בשונאיהם, the day that they won the war, and they killed all the enemies. והרוג בשונאיהם. אם כן ראו מיד שישנו הנס. The miracle was appeared immediately. וכבר נקבע במעשה בפועל, למטה מעשרת טפחים. It was already there. The miracle happened. But in Chanukah, the miracle didn't happen yet. You don't know. מה שאין כן כאשר מדובר אודות גזירה רוחנית, but it became the spiritual decree of Chanukah. וצריכו לדעת אם בטלה הגזירה. They didn't know if they won the war or not. They needed to wait to win for the next year to establish it. לא רק מצד אומות העולם, not just from the other nations, אלא גם מצד בני ישראל, from our own. If you're going to make a survey the next day, who's going to win? 60-40? Or 30-70? 95-10? You don't know. You don't know what the people want. שכן האפשרות לגזור גזירה על בני ישראל אינה לה כאשר ישנם מהרסיך ומחריביך ממך יצאו. It says the ones who defeated us are not the Greeks. We were the one who defeated us. It came from ourselves. ובנידון דידן, in our case, שכיוון שאצל בני ישראל היו מתייוונים, that because we chose to become Greek, it came from us, לכן הייתה מלכות יוון יכולה לגזור גזרה להשכיחם תורתך לעבירה מחוקי רצונך. Because it came from us, there was even a possibility for such a decree from the Greeks. If we wouldn't have accepted, they wouldn't have made it. We came to the Greeks and we told them, you know what, these Orthodox Jews, they want us to do all this, they want us to mutilate our bodies. Crazy! Cut a Jewish boy thing. Didn't ask him for permission. You have to ask him. What do you mean? It comes from inside. It says the movement against Judaism came from us. We went to the king and started complaining about the Orthodox. You know, the Orthodox are telling us to do this. The Orthodox are, we're not interested. We cannot have buses on Shabbat. We cannot go to the theater on Shabbat. There's no movies on Shabbat. What are you talking about? Who let you? We're 95% of the nation. You 5%, you're telling us what to do? No. We want some power. והנה כאשר מצאו שמן טהור, but when they found a pure oil, והדליקו ממנה 8 ימית, and they lit from it for 8 days, עדיין לא יכולים לדעת מה נעשה בעולם. They still didn't know what would have happened amongst the nation. They don't know what the face of the nation wants. עד כמה חדר האור בעולם, until where the light of Chanukah penetrated the world. Did it really penetrate? We went down from 5% to 15%, or we went down from 5% to 95%? What's the message? What happened in Chanukah? ואם נתקבל אצל הציבור, if the people received the miracle of Chanukah, עד שנתבטלו מארסיך ומחריביך, all those people who were Hellenized, who became Greeks, did they do tshuva? Or they didn't do tshuva? Only then, if they did tshuva, then we can be sure שבטלה גזרה, that the decree is gone. ולכן רק לשנה אחרת, this is why, only the next year, לאחרי שעברו י"ב חודש שנה שלמה, after you had a whole 12 years to see, are they going to do this? They're not going to do this. You know, maybe just the war, everybody was enthusiastic after the war. It was when everybody is enthusiastic after the war, maybe that's when they voted for you. Wait a year, maybe they're not going to vote for you. Yeah? It's just politics. Everybody was enthusiastic when you vote for a certain president. Wait a year, see if people are still enthusiastic, maybe not so much like they used to be. לאחר שיש בו כל השינויים האפשריים, when you have all the possibilities that could happen throughout the year, דזרע וקציר וקור וחום וקיץ וחורף לא ישבתו, that everything, all the cycle went through and people are still accepting it. וראו שהאור מהשמן הטהור שהדליקו בית המקדש, and they were able to see that the light that they lit in the temple, נתקבל, was received under all the situation throughout the year, והחזיק מעמד בכל הציבור, and we don't only have now 5%, the entire Jewish nation accepted it again. Pretty much everybody accepted it again. The entire Jewish nation became Orthodox again. אזי קבעום לימים טובים בהלל והודאה. Then they established it to good days, to holidays in Hallel and thank. באופן של קביעות על כל הדורות. In a way that it's going to last forever. עד מלך המשיח, until king משיח. כיוון שהנס נמשך חוץ למקדש ובחוץ לארץ בזמן הגלות. And this miracle was even outside of the temple and even out of the land of Israel in the time of exile. When it says, I just want to mention one thing. There was once, what do we learn? What can we take? What's the message that we can take from this entire lesson? There's this one chassid who came to the Rabbi, and he told the Rabbi, I need a change. See, I'm not acting the right way. I need to change. I need to behave in a better way. So the Rebbe gave him a recipe. He says you should do this and this and this and this, and that will change you. So the student comes back after 6 weeks, and he says to the Rebbe, I followed your recipe, and it doesn't work. Yeah. So the Rabbi gave him an analogy. It says there's a guy who's very fat. He's diabetic. And he comes to the doctor. So the doctor gives him a diet, certain diet to eat. But he says you don't lose your weight too fast. Slowly you lose your weight. You give him a recipe, what to eat, how to exercise, what to do. Yeah? And again, so after 6 weeks, he comes back to the Rabbi and he says, Rabbi, it doesn't work. So to the doctor, it doesn't work. So the doctor tells him, you cannot see if it worked after 6 weeks or not work after 6 weeks. You have to do it, More time, a long time. It just doesn't go. This is exactly what happened over here. The fact that they won the war didn't mean that they won the war. The fact that you did it one time, everybody says after Rosh Hashanah for the Goyim, everybody says, I'm going to exercise. Okay. And everybody exercises exactly for 1 week, and then what happens? Everybody stops exercising. It says you cannot make a decision the way you feel after the enthusiasm and everything else. And this is what the holiday of Chanukah comes to teach us. It says, I know you're going to be enthusiastic. It says, I know you're going to be enthusiastic. And when you're going to be enthusiastic, you're going to want to go to exercise 3 times a day. You're going to go to the gym, and you can say, I'm going to go to the gym not twice a week. I'm going to go to the gym every day. 5 days a week I'm going to the gym. And they run to the gym, and then what happens? They burn out. So the lesson from Chanukah is, that's not how you light the Chanukah menorah. How do you light the Chanukah menorah? You want to go to the gym? Excuse me, first of all, you exercise. You know how much? 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day. You light how many candles on the first day? You light 1 candle. Then once you get used to this 1 candle, now it comes easy, this 1 candle, and another candle, and add another candle, and add another candle, until you have the menorah of Beis HaMikdash, which is lit. You don't just go and do 8 candles. Right. Yeah? You don't expect from somebody to do the 8 candles. That's why they needed to wait a whole year to see if it actually caught. If it was just like they accepted it, like we accept exercise on the Rosh Hashanah or not? Is it a real acceptance?
They have to see that it worked the whole year, that they're really Balei Tshuva, and then, okay, I see.
Now you see.
Catched. But I didn't know that it was so easy to convince the Jews to go against themselves and not to believe in God anymore.
It wasn't to convince. We convinced
They did it-
themselves.
they did it themselves, in a way.
Exactly. We didn't. The Greeks
Right.
didn't convict us. We convicted the Greeks. We ran to the Greek king to tell us the Orthodox are, giving us too much trouble. There's no cars on Shabbat. The restaurants are not open on Shabbat. We want.
Country run by religious.
Exactly.
I'm not willing. It's not good for me.
That's pretty much what it was.